So, I just got to see Madam Webb, the movie that everybody seems to be talking about, the brand new film from Sony that takes place in their weird Sony Spider-Man universe, the same universe which we got Mobius and we also got the Venom movies in. It takes place in that same world, and it stars Dakota Johnson as Madam Webb and a bunch of other people like Sydney Sweeney, Isabel Merced, other people I'm forgetting. I think Adam Scott is in this, right? And yeah, this is a movie that, like everybody else, when it was announced a couple years ago, my immediate reaction was wondering why they would make a movie about the Madam Web character. That's a very odd choice. The only thing I'd ever known the character from was from Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions when she appeared in that. And it didn't really seem like the type of character you could build a film around, but I was very open to the idea of them finding a creative way to bring a character like this to the big screen, maybe doing something different with the comic book genre. And as you could tell, because this movie came out, and I'm sure everybody else has seen the other reviews, the movie's not very good, and it's getting shit on by everybody. Like, it has got a abysmal Rotten Tomatoes score. People are just really ripping this apart. And I want to get this out of the way quick. Although I will admit right now, I do not like this movie. It's not very good. I'm also going to say something. The amount of hate this movie is getting is a little bit overboard. There's people on the internet, people like other reviewers and content creators that are treating this movie like it is the worst thing that has ever been made in Hollywood. It is the most offensive and disgraceful movie and worst piece of filmmaking that has ever been put in movie theaters. And it's just a little outrageous. This movie's not great. It's definitely not the worst movie I've even seen this year, though. Like, it's not that terrible. It's just a bad comic book movie in a world in which every comic book movie is pretty bad. This movie's about at that same level of bad that, like, the newest Aquaman was, or, like, The Flash from last year. Those movies might actually, you can make an argument, are a little bit worse. So I think the fact that a lot of content creators right now and a lot of other movie reviewers are just kind of using this movie and a lot of the people involved in this movie as a punching bag to just get more content and be extremely hateful and make, comedic jokes that are just like, yeah, the movie's garbage, but, like, it's not so bad that some of the content that I've seen on YouTube the last couple days, it's really not warranted. It's not a 0 out of 5 movie. Let's get into it. The basic plot of the movie is it stars Dakota Johnson, who is this Madam Web character. She has this ability to where she could see the future. And in this future, she sees that this weird, dark Spider-Man dude keeps on trying to kill these 3 chicks who would eventually become Spider-Woman in the future. So now she has to go and save them. It's kind of like a weird Groundhog Day type plot. Except not really, but kind of. You essentially have a plot where she's just trying to protect them from this impending future, this impending danger. It's kind of like the Terminator, but in a weird reversal role where we're following the Protector and we're kind of learning about why this dude is, like, trying to kill these girls. And it's a plot that, like, on paper, I can understand why this would sound cool. Let's do Terminator 1 and pretty much every Terminator movie, but let's do it as a comic book film. Like, that could work. But it just doesn't here for a couple reasons. First off, the script. Yes, a lot of people have been bagging on the script. It's not great, but it's also not the worst script in the world in the sense that it's a pretty standardized Hollywood comic book script that's written by a bunch of yes men. Like, there are other comic book movies with scripts just as bad as this. So the fact that people are saying this is like an outlier is hilarious to me. It's not a great script. It's a story that just kind of has way too much going on in it, but also not enough going on. Does that make sense? Like, it has so many different ideas that it never has enough time to focus on any of them and really flesh them out. So although there's a lot in the movie, a lot of characters, a lot of things coming in and out, a lot of different things happening, none of it is ever focused. They never do enough on one certain thing to get you interested in it, especially with the characters. With Madam Web, the character herself, outside of, like, a couple things that happen early in the film, you really don't know anything about this woman. You don't know where she's coming from, what her personal life is really like outside of a couple things. You just don't really get a sense of who this person is. Therefore, you never really care about her, and you're supposed to care about her. Especially with the other 3 girls, Sydney Sweeney, Isabel Merced. Those 3 characters, you don't really learn anything about them besides a couple exposition dumps. You never really get to know them. They don't really have great chemistry with each other, so it just doesn't really work their story at all, and you don't care about anything that happens to them. You don't care about the tension around them. So what happens with them eventually is it just all becomes kind of boring around that. And then especially with other characters, like the villain here. I have a lot of issues with the villain, and I'll get into more of it in a little bit in this video, but the villain here is just kind of standard, this bad guy who has a reason for doing the bad things he does, a reason that he finds justifiable. And you don't really find out why, like, earlier in the movie, like, he has a reason, he does something very bad in, like, the opening of the movie. And there's alluded to that there's a past that he's coming from, like a dark past, and there is a soul to him that, like, doesn't want to totally be a dick, but he has to be a dick. But they never really go into it after that opening scene. They kind of jump into a different arc with him, where now he has a new reason for wanting to do something. And that's where the movie kind of focuses on throughout the rest of its storyline. And it never really goes anywhere beyond that with that character. Therefore, you never really have a reason to care about him either, or understand where he's coming from as a villain. It feels like there had to be a lot cut out with that character, because I will say, the actor, I don't know who he is, but he has like a vibe to him that like he probably could have pulled this character off if it was written a little bit better, and it could have been really cool. But at the end of the day, he's just kind of a suit. He's just a dark Spider-Man dude that just gives the characters a reason to have conflict, and it doesn't really work. And then Adam Scott, why is he in this movie? Well, because he's playing Uncle Ben. And they wanted to have a Peter Parker, Spider-Man Easter egg here. I will say, originally, and this is probably where the rumors came from, remember when it got leaked that he was playing Uncle Ben Parker? And there were so many rumors that this movie was going to revolve around Madam Webb trying to save, like, a young Peter Parker. And let's be honest, that's probably where this plot should have went. If they were going to go the Terminator route, it should have been, like, some Spider-Man villain from the future coming back in time to try to kill a young Peter Parker. Maybe, like, Green Goblin coming back to kill a young Peter Parker, and Madam Webb has to step in and save him because she could see the future. That probably is the direction they should have taken this, but instead it's not. Adam Scott's in the movie just to, sell an Easter egg and a hope for a potential future in this universe that we're probably never going to see. But whatever. But yeah, besides that with the writing, I mean, a lot of the dialogue is corny and cheesy. It doesn't work, especially in the opening scenes of the movie. That's probably, like, the opening is really bad. The opening is probably the one part of this movie I can agree with people where it's like, that's just not, I don't know how they looked at that, the studio, the director, everybody, and just said, yes, that's what we got to use. But a lot of the writing in the dialogue is not great. There's other sections that the dialogue actually I thought was written pretty well, surprisingly. Just random moments where it was pretty good. And then there were other scenes that I think were ad-libbed, and, like, I'm totally okay. Like, I've done it on my sets where you just tell the actors, like, I'm not really sure what I have written here. Like, I'm not really sure this is going to work. Let's just do a take. Just do whatever. Let's just see what happens. Just ad-lib some stuff and see what... Like, I'm totally cool with that. A lot of different directors, big directors, have done that on their films, and it ends up, in certain films, you get some really cool creative stuff. Other times, not so much. This is a film, and a lot of the moments that they use the ad-lib stuff on, where it probably should not have been doing that, but they probably felt forced to because they didn't love the script. And like I said, I don't know for a fact that a lot of the stuff in this movie is ad-libbed. It's just my feeling with some lines. They just didn't feel written. They didn't feel scripted. And not in, like, a good way. Like, wow, that writing was so good. It felt so realistic. Just, like, in a way where it's like, nah, nobody would have written that line in that spot. But I don't know. The ad-libbing stuff just didn't work for me. If it was ad-libbing. If it was writing, then it also just didn't work for me. But then we get to, like, my real problem with the film. And I'm gonna go easy here. Like, I'm not gonna call anybody out by name. I'm not gonna say nothing, that's too harsh, just in case I ever get to work in the industry. I don't want to I don't want to punch down. I don't want to punch up either. I don't want to punch anybody, right? But I gotta say something, all right? The acting in this movie, it's not good. Performances here, and I don't know. Let me just clarify. I don't know if it's because the actors, I heard there were rumors that Dakota Johnson signed on from a different script. She had read a script that was great, and then she showed up and they handed her a script that was completely different, and it was a piece of crap. So I don't know if the actors signed on for a different kind of project, arrived, realized that the project was now shit, and just kind of, like, threw in a performance, didn't really care, didn't put any effort, kind of lazied their way through this script. I don't know if that's what happened there. But that's kind of what it feels like. These performances, a lot of them, there's some that are good, and like I said, I don't want to name any names. I don't want to call anybody out specifically, the good or the bad, so I'm just not going to say any names. But there are some performances that are decent, that people actually put some effort into. But there are some here that are some of the laziest performances I've ever seen in Hollywood. Some of the line deliveries, some of just the effort and the energy put into some scenes, it really looks, it's below some, like, indie school films that I've seen in my life. And to me, that's just, it shows two things. It shows a set that just wasn't that serious, because if the set was serious and the people that actually were on the set, both acting and behind the camera, really cared about this film, you would think that there would have been more of an effort to pull out some better performances, even if the script wasn't great. And second off, it says something about the director. Now, I don't want to call out the director too harshly here, but there are specific moments where there are lines that these actors said in ways that, like, there is no way any serious director, anybody on planet Earth, would see how they perform some of these lines and go, gold, perfect, that's not only say it and say, that's great take, but then use that take. Like, there are some line deliveries that are so poor, I forgot that I was watching a serious Hollywood movie that was trying to be a dramatic movie. Like, it was laughably bad. It was just not good, and that to me was probably the worst part of the movie. And it's not the whole thing. There's a lot of stuff where there actually is really good direction. I'm not hitting on the director here. There are some scenes where the camera work and a lot of the ways that the choreography and the action was actually well done. The director here did know what she was doing. She did a decent job at a lot of it, but there's just a lot of moments with the acting where I just do not know what was going on. I don't know if there was reshoots. I don't know if it was just reshooting an entire script, but there was such little effort put into some of these performances that it just completely took me out of the movie. And to some of the other actors who did great, like I said, I'm not going to name names either way, but the ones that did do a good job and brought their A game and you know, tried to pull something out of this script, good for them. There are some, and if you see the movie, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But then, yeah, from a technical aspect, like I said, some of the fight scenes I actually think kind of work. There's one at, like, the diner that's in all the trailers where the camera does some weird shit that I kind of liked. I thought that was cool and original. I think the CGI is fine. It's not the worst I've ever seen in comic book movies. That goes to The Flash from last year. So it's a lot better than that. I thought the score was okay. The sound design was fine. The one thing I did not like about the sound was the ADR work. The dubbing in this movie is atrocious, and I don't know if it's because the performances were so bad they were trying to rework them in post, or if because the writing was so bad they wanted to write new lines in post, but almost everything in this movie is dubbed, and like that's not insane for film. There's a lot of films that do ADR work for literally everything in the movie, that do like 80% of it. There's other films that do 80% regular dialogue that was caught on set, and they do like a little ADR work to, you know, tighten it up. But this movie's like gotta be about 95% ADR, and it's done really bad, specifically with the villain, who's just, it's really bad. And it's noticeable, which is just, it takes you out of the movie. The ending of this movie is not good. It doesn't really get to a satisfying conclusion, although the final fight I thought was okay. It was kind of unique. The costumes are great, even though you barely see them, and there's no after-credit scene, so no universe building, nothing like that. Overall, I didn't love this movie. It's not the complete shit show that everybody's talking about. It's not the worst movie of all time. It's not even the worst movie of the year so far. It's definitely not the worst comic book movie ever, but it's also just, like, not a very good movie, like, at all, and I can't really recommend anybody going to see it. But I recommend checking it out if it comes to, like, Netflix eventually. You'll probably get a good laugh out of it. You might have fun on it. So I will give it a 1.5 out of 5. I thought Madam Web was just kind of not great. So that's it, guys. Make sure to like it and subscribe. Make sure to turn on notifications. Click the video on your screen right now. I'll see you guys in the next video.